Welcome, everyone, to Diversity Matters. Diversity Matters is designed to be a forum where panelists from around the globe bring their different perspectives and extraordinary experiences to bear on controversial and timely issues. Our discussions will be authentic, uncensored, and entertaining. We will agree to disagree peacefully. Tonight, I'm excited to introduce our outstanding global panelists. Tonight, our Australian Sacha Kaluri is no stranger to the show. Welcome, Sacha.
Hey, thank you so much for having me back. I'm excited to be back, and I'm really passionate about today's topic.
Awesome. Mr. Paul Rogers, Canadian Paul Rogers, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's always a great pleasure to work with you, Jennylyn. So yeah, I'm just very pleased to be here on this panel, even though I am just solely representing the male fraternity here. So I'm feeling slightly outgunned, but we'll see about that.
I think that makes you the most popular, Paul.
I like to think so.
And we have New York's Amanda Donaldson.
Hi everyone. Good evening. I'm happy to be here tonight.
Welcome, welcome. We have Sharon Ray of Wales. Sharon, welcome to Diversity Matters.
Hi, Jenny.
Welcome,
yeah,
welcome,
I'm sure Paul is well able to hold his own amongst all these women.
We will see, right, Paul? So tonight we are going to be discussing a topic that I think all of my panelists have had some experience with in some way, if not directly through someone. Our topic tonight is depression and suicide. And because of COVID-19, so many people are depressed. So on Amanda's suggestion, we decided tonight we would discuss this topic. And so I want to start the show by asking, what is depression? Why don't we start with Paul, since he's the charm of the bracelet?
Oh, you're so kind. What depression means to me, or
yes, what it means to you?
Well, I've suffered from depression and suicidal thoughts. So for me, it's a personal experience. But as you can see, I've managed to survive 100% of my bad days. So I like to put that record on the line every day. And I'm still here, and I'm still kicking. Yeah, pulse and everything. So yeah, I'm pleased to be here to engage with the lovely ladies, and I just seem to be the only thorn between a bunch of roses, but hey.
And you're the most welcome, thorn, Paul. Thank you. Amanda, what does depression mean to you?
Well, I would say it's mostly when someone feels down and seem kind of hopeless. I must say, at some point in my life, I was never clinically diagnosed, but I did feel that way probably about 20 years ago. I was having some issues, and that's how I felt, like kind of hopeless and not knowing where to turn or what to do next. And I wasn't even aware of it. A friend of mine who decided to keep in touch with me on a daily basis. At the end of it, when I was reading some article and everything that it was saying about what depression is, I was like, but that's me. I experienced that. So when I said that to him, he said, I know. And that's why I called you every day. And my wife actually told me, make sure you call her every day, or his wife is a nurse. So that was like a real revelation to me, never thinking that that could have been me. I just think, life throws you punches, and you punch back if you can, or find other ways of dealing with it. And I thought that's just quite normal. So I wasn't even aware that I was going through some depression at the time. So that's what it means to me.
Thank you, Amanda. How about you, Sacha?
Look, depression to me feels, well, look, I would say that, I mean, every person has experienced some sort of depression. And it's actually really, to me, it's that mental state when you're not able to find clearly a way to be able to see an out to the situation. So it's almost like any solution that you can't think of a solution. There's no ability to find that resilience inside of you. Now, we all have that resilience, but it gets clouded. And so I think that's when the depression, when you say it's a really strong version of depression, because, you know, everybody has a bad day, but it's when it just clouds it over and you just aren't able to see an out or any form of resilience. That's what that means to me.
Well, to me, depression comes in many, many forms and guises. It can slip in quietly in the night like a thief. So you go to bed one night feeling buoyant and upbeat, and the following morning, all you want to do is curl up on the couch and not move. I have suffered from depression on and off throughout most of my adult life. However, I've never had suicidal thoughts, but I know of people that have. On a professional level, I know that depression is one of the morbidly psychiatric illnesses. And it can cause a vast range of issues. For me personally, my depression can show as stress, anxiety. I suffer from seasonal affective disorder. So living in the United Kingdom, this time of the year, it ain't no good for me. Doesn't really work. It's, you know, it's dark in the morning when you wake up, it's dark in the afternoon. And when you're working from home, you don't go outside the door. But then again, it's a case of we're not alone in this right now, because a lot of the world is suffering from what I would say mild depression, because depression can be caused by uncertainty as well. And uncertainty, and we are all surrounded by uncertainty at the moment. And fear can actually cause depression. So there's a lot of things that can cause depression. But for women, it can range from anything from hormones to mental health. For men, strangely enough, hormones play a part in that as well. But again, depression is such an enormous topic. It affects us all in so many different ways. I know that if I start shouting, the kids go, "Mum, have you taken your happy pills?" Oops, maybe I've forgotten. So
thank you so much, Sharon. Because of all the craziness going on in the world at the moment, some people are having a tough time telling the difference between grief and depression. Paul, can you tell us what you think the difference is between grief and depression?
They're both sort I kind of think they're both bedfellows, to be honest. So I think trying to separate one from the other is they kind of very blurred. And yeah, I mean, the grief at the moment, it can be grief from losing your job to all sorts of things where, you know, you're working how you used to. And that can trigger a response where, as Sacha said, that feeling of hopelessness, or no, Amanda said that the feeling of helplessness. And that compounds the grief. So what they do is they start getting into a cycle. And the trick, as far as I can see, is to try and break that cycle. And that comes from, a variety of ways. But at the moment, I think lots of people are also, they don't even know it's happening.
Thank you, Paul. Sharon, what do you want to say to this?
Well, I actually agree with Paul, because grief and depression do go hand in hand. Depression normally follows, doesn't have to follow a bereavement, but we are all grieving as it is right now. We are grieving for our loss of freedom, our loss of our right to travel, our loss of our right to go into a restaurant when we feel like it without having to book and socially distance. We're grieving because all of those rights that we've taken for granted are gone. Where people are living in fear because of their jobs. Are they going to have a job? Are they not? Then the next thing is every sniffle you get, is this COVID?
Mm-hmm. That
And
is true.
yeah, it's a case of you get a sniffle, your eyes water, you might run a temperature one night, and you're frantically running for a thermometer to see what, where are you at? So all of this does cause physiological changes in our bodies, and our levels of fear are finite. We can only cope with a certain level of fear. And there's only a certain amount of times that you can keep using your resilience. And I mean, it's winter in some parts of the world, it's summer in other parts of the world. But life as we know it has changed, and we have to get used to a new normal, and whatever this new normal is going to be. So because of, in essence, you've got 7 billion people on this planet plus grieving for an old way of life, grieving for loved ones, etc., etc.
Thank you, my love. And you, Sacha?
When I think of, I completely agree, we're all grieving something because we've all lost something very, very dear to us, whether it be work. But I think one of the most important things is that some of us have lost our sense of purpose in the world. And losing your sense of purpose just because it's losing your sense of purpose of where you fit into the world, whether it's your job, who you fit into with people, those kind of things. And when you've lost your sense of purpose, there's no reason to get up the next day. What are you getting up for? The job that's now changed that I don't like, or the fact that I may not have a job. And so we're all losing that sense of purpose. And even as parenting or the things that are changing, because there are so many changes, all that are piling up to each other, that's the thing that I think when you've lost that sense of purpose, it's completely crushing down on how we feel about ourselves. And it's also, I think that there's also a lot of pressure thinking, well, it's during COVID, maybe we should utilise this time to be doing different things. But I think that one of the most important things is that we need to understand that post-COVID, there will be some severe post-traumatic stress disorder that, even, for example, we've experienced a very, very severe lockdown in where I am, and now we're starting to come out of it. But people aren't going out as much because they've been locked up for such a long time that people aren't, people have put on weight, people aren't feeling good about themselves. Isolation promotes isolation. So people are starting to think, well, what would I talk about anyway? I'm a little bit nervous to go out. So although we're starting to open up, you would think that officially our streets would be busy, but in fact they're not, because it's almost like that mentality of lockdown is it's taken over us. So again, we're experiencing things that are just unprecedented before. And I don't think our world or even our countries or our states have the capacity to be able to deal with it, because it's never ever been like that. So it's really upon ourselves to reach out and help individual people, because there isn't the capacity to be able to help this many people experiencing it.
Thank you so much. Amanda.
Yes. So talking about grieving, I do agree that grieving has to do with a loss. And yes, we have all lost like our sense of freedom and everything like that. And just having that loss puts us in a place where we don't know what's next. There's anxiety attached to that because we don't know what's happening next. There's vaccines coming out, all these things, and we're not sure whether that's the way to go, or is it going to solve the problem that we're hoping that it's going to solve, or is it going to create new problems? We're locked down in, I mean, everyone is experiencing this differently. Some people have even lost their jobs. Some people who are lucky are able to work from home, but some people have lost jobs. So that's another area where you're anxious and don't know what's going to happen next, how things are going, especially here in the United States. So they're very similar, the grieving process and depression, because I guess they're basically one affects the other in terms of for the reasoning why you're grieving, and what your reaction is the depression part to that grieving process. So that's how I see that, that they are very similar and can cross lines that it's difficult sometimes to differentiate which is the one that's happening at the moment.
Thank you, Amanda. So there's been a rise where I live in the suicide amongst young people. And it's believed that social media is playing a part in this. What are your thoughts on this, Sacha?
I think that the reason people are saying social media is playing a part of this is because people are probably more than ever, we all put the positive sides of our social media out there. And so if I'm feeling like I've lost my job, my life is falling apart, and I'm watching all these other people that are saying, well, I'm working from home, or I'm coping with homeschooling, or, you know, my marriage is surviving being locked up in a tiny house together, or we're just doing, and you're at the absolute other scale of it, you're thinking that everybody else is surviving this COVID lockdown and the world is okay except for you, because you can only see what you're seeing, and you're not opened up to anybody, and you're not seeing other people and speaking to them, because again, like I said, you know, we're not reaching out. I think that at the beginning of the year when our first lockdown started, people were doing all these fun things, Zoom calls and parties and all of this. We're not doing that anymore because we're over it. You know, I need to connect with someone in real life now. I don't want to do it, you know, drinks over a Zoom, because at the end of the day we hang up and I'm sitting in my lounge room by myself. Even with working with home, like right now, you know, I'm having conversations with people all over the world, but effectively I'm sitting in my office alone. And so that those moments where you do have, like, you'll get off from here and you go, oh, that was a great experience, I've got nobody to share it with. So, you know, there's the peaks and the troughs are like, they're small. And so you'll find that the highs are high because you go and get, but the lows are extremely, extremely low from that. So again, we need to reach out to people for that.
Thank you so much. Paul, what are your views?
I think what a lot of Sacha said there is very, very relevant. And guys especially, we tend to bottle up our problems anyway, and we're typically meant to be the strong person that holds families together and things. And so there is this kind of additional pressure on them to actually start to show a vulnerable side. And that, as I said, if they get it bottled up, it has to come out somewhere else. And so the let's meet down the pub, and you know, we're not particularly good about talking about that stuff anyway, but you know, we punch each other on the shoulder and help. But if that's gone as well, and you know, we're effectively isolated pods, and you know, it's great. I mean, one of the benefits is I wouldn't have met all you guys, so that's a good plus. But also it's kind of like leaves you, as Sacha said, it kind of leaves you with half the story. It would be nice to come back and have the touch, you know, all the little, I mean, our body language is just that in a box. And so we miss all the other humane parts. And actually 95% of communication is body language, 5% of which actually comes out of your mouth. So that's kind of my thoughts on the pressure, and speaking from a male perspective, that's something I've encountered a lot.
Thank you, Paul. Sharon?
When you look at the statistics amongst the younger people, the younger generation, yes, social media, perhaps not social media directly, but the amount of time that they are spending in front of screens is not helping, because their social interaction skills are gone. And bullying is being carried out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. I've had experience of it in my own family because of being bullied. And again, it's the young person not able to say. But again, we come to the stereotypical roles of male and female. As Paul said, men bottle things up. Men will talk to men about business, but they won't reach out and ask for help for personal stuff. Women will yak at each other about most things, but they will not reach out about business. So it's the total converse, one against the other. And the thing is, if we're brought up from children to be empowered to talk about our emotions and to talk about ourselves on a holistic basis, and to be taught what the signs and symptoms are of heading in a downward spiral, and to allow parents to be able to have an open dialogue with their kids, and their kids to have an open dialogue with their parents, then you normally tend to get good results. You'll still get kids, don't get me wrong, that'll go, oh, she's my mother, I can't tell her that. I'll tell a teacher that instead. But as long as they've been empowered to tell someone, and that's where we're at, because society as a whole, screen addiction is causing a lot of issues, because people are burying their heads in screens, and even outside of Zoom calls. So I now make it a practice to read a book, an old-fashioned book, instead of on a screen, just to get away from the screen. So yeah, I can't exactly say social media. I can say technology. It has good points and it has its bad points.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Amanda, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so linking it to social media, I think actually social media might be actually a help. I see it on the other spectrum, because if you're in lockdown, you're at home, some kids are probably by themselves, or because their parents are going to work, or if they're younger, maybe they're with their parents are there, whatever is the situation. But that interaction that they will probably have with, that they would have had with their friends when they're in school or in other social settings, that's lacking, because as Sharon said, there are times when your kids will probably not tell, no matter what good relationship you have with your kid, there are times when there are certain things they would rather talk to among themselves, their peers, rather than come to you. So in saying that, by being in the social media, whether it's, whatever it is, TikTok or Instagram, whatever they're doing, some of them are playing video games with each other, things like that. So that's their interaction away from the physical interaction. So I see it as probably a help to them to have that. Another thing is, like I after reading about this situation with the young, especially males, they said are prone to suicide. I actually spoke to my son, he's 21. So I spoke to him and asked him, like directly, what are your thoughts about this and how you feel about not being, with your friends. He's an only child, so he already has that self ability to just operate on an individual basis. So it's nothing too new for him, because from a child he played by himself. I mean, there were play dates and so on, but as an operated on that level. So he is also lucky in that from middle school, he was in a program that assisted him to get the educational level to go into boarding school for high school. And that community of people have stayed with him right through until now he's in college. They're still with him. So he has a person that he can reach out to for anything. And when I spoke to him recently about this same situation, he said, oh, I spoke to the young lady who is my guidance counselor. And, she was giving him tips on how to cope with if he feels a certain way and things like that. So in saying that, it's good for them to be able to reach out to someone. So even if it's not you, the parent, it's good to know that your children have either friends or maybe it's a relative who they feel more comfortable speaking with on that level, whether it's a cousin or something like that, or aunt, uncle, whatever. So I wouldn't say that social media is doing that unless it's the part with the bullying part, and that can happen whether they're physically with the person or not. So I see social media as a help in this case.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Believe it or not, this time flies when we're doing these great talk, discussing these topics that change the world. I want to get 2 questions in before we have to wrap this part of it up. So if you could make short answers, that'd be great. One of the questions I'm going to ask each of you is, what do you think is some of the most psychological disorders that people are being affected now because of COVID-19? And I'll start with you, Sacha.
Oh, some of the biggest ones, I guess, the lack of freedom of what that's actually giving us, and the lack of again, it goes back down to the lack of purpose. And I would really say we have the 2 biggest effects that is affecting it within households is domestic violence, and because that is just incredibly on the rise, and the consumption of drugs and alcohol, especially alcohol, is just gone up through the roof.
Thank you so much, Paul.
For me, it's post-traumatic stress disorder, but the big kicker to this is there's nothing post about it. It's actually happening now. It's kind of like a drip, drip, drip. And we're like a soldier on tour at the moment. We're hyper vigilant, but when this all ends and when people start to unpack, oh boy, there is a real problem about to occur. Not now, but give it 6 months or a year's time. That's when you have to really pay attention. So traumatic stress disorder, not even post yet.
And so for the people watching the show who has not seen Paul before in my previous shows, I'm just going to add this at this juncture. Paul has been through some severe trauma. First, he had skin cancer. which he managed to cure himself of. And then he and his family were T-boned and dragged by a train. And so Paul knows trauma. So I think that some of the PTSD of which you refer is related to this, right, Paul? And now you add COVID to it. Thank you. Okay, how about you, Sharon? What do you think about, what do you think is some of the psychological disorders people are suffering from now because of COVID?
I agree with Paul. Currently, you're looking at about a 70% rate of traumatic stress disorders and symptoms being displayed. Anxiety, stress, panic, phobias, OCD about cleanliness. You're then looking at even some agoraphobia coming in, where people are afraid to go out. And again, it's all fear, it's anxiety based, and that is all leading to traumatic stress disorders, which are current. So the tools and everything needs to be given out now to help people so that they can have the strategies available so it doesn't become severe post-traumatic stress.
Thank you so much. And you, Amanda?
Yeah, there is quite a bit. I was just actually looking at the news today, and they were saying right here.
Can I interrupt you for a second, Amanda? Sorry, just so everyone on the panel, everyone watching this show knows, Amanda suffered with COVID. She was a COVID positive patient. Carry on, Amanda.
Okay, so yes, I was watching the news today, and they were saying they're right here in New York. There's an increase in gun violence. So by a tremendous percentage, I think like 40%, something like that. And I was like, wow. So violence, domestic violence, I know has increased. I've heard of that. Also alcoholism, drug addiction, everything has gone up. And I want to say too, for me, prior to me contracting COVID, I was very anxious. My anxiety level was really, really high because I was watching the news all the time, monitoring the cases, the deaths, and it got to me. I wasn't even aware how anxious I was until I got COVID and recovered, and then I felt a relief. I actually felt relieved that I have it, I've gotten it. This was why I was so anxious, cleaning everything, doing all this, as Sharon said, the OCD and all that, you're wiping down everything. As the mail comes in, you're doing all these kinds of stuff. So yes, there's a lot. After this is over, it's going on now, as Paul said, drip, drip. After it's all over, it's going to, then we're going to realize, even though some of us are not even realizing that we're in that space, because during the time when we had our lockdown here earlier in the year, March, April, May, I felt, okay, this is a good time for me to read or do something, but I just couldn't bring myself. I was so anxious that I couldn't bring myself to be focused and sit down and read a book. I bought all these books to read and I couldn't.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And the last question, I want everyone on the panel to tell me, for the people watching this show, what would you like to leave with them? What kind of suggestions can you offer to them to, if they're struggling with depression, on how to cope with it? Maybe it's something you've tried yourself, or just any tips you want to leave for anybody who's depressed or probably getting depressed. What do you guys want to leave? And I'm going to give each of you a chance to tell them, you know, leave an encouraging message for them. And I'm going to start with you, Paul, since you're the one rose amongst the thorns.
Bless your heart, I wasn't going to go that side, but hey, I'll take that. For me, it's having a positive, a goal to work to, and you don't have to. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be something which you get up every day and you just do a next little bit. You don't need to score a touchdown every time. You just need to get up and you need to at least have something to focus on rather than all the mess that's going on at the moment. So see through it and find something and keep your eyes fixed on that point. That's the advice I would give.
Thank you, Paul. And Amanda?
Okay, so for me, I always like to cook, but I found myself during COVID coming up with all the, especially my Guyanese dishes that I didn't take the time to learn to cook, like the rotis and all that stuff. So every week or whatever, we'll come up, myself and my husband will come up with something and a new dish. And we actually wrote that down to say, okay, this is our COVID dish. This is what we made during COVID, something that we have not done before. So it's good to know when you have someone around you, but it bothers me a lot for those who are alone and they have to go through this process all by themselves. It's nice when you have like a partner or a few children with you or so, that it's not as scary and lonesome. But I would advise people, just as Paul said, and that's something I've been doing too, like focusing on one little thing each day that I'm going to complete. In fact, right now I have a friend who is suffering from depression. And that's something I told him. I say, don't go with all the big ideas. Just take one small thing, write it down, maybe weekly. You write down 5 little things that you're going to do this week. And each day you try to accomplish one. And even if you didn't finish that one, roll it over to the next day or do something else and then come back to that. That was my advice to him. And, to think more in positive ways about his life. And that is what I will advise anyone to do. Find a hobby or something that you haven't done before. And whatever it is you're doing, do it in small increments so that you're not overwhelmed.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Sharon?
Okay, first thing is make your bed. There is, and you're going to laugh at this, but it's actually true. Get up in the morning, make your bed. You have accomplished one task for the day. Create a routine. So you're getting up at a certain time, you're going to bed at a certain time, and move. Make a move. Go for a little walk. Even if it's running up and down your stairs, even if it's cleaning one worktop in your kitchen, just do something, move. And once you've made that bed in the morning, you know that when you go back up into your bedroom at night, you've got that sense of pride because you've accomplished that one thing that day. And from that one thing, many things come.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And you, Sacha?
Look, 3 things that have helped me through lockdown. First thing is 100% is movement. Your body is designed to move and move. Even if you're walking up and down the hallway, move up, do whatever it is that you can do, walk, move your body, even if it means that you're doing stretches or something, because your body actually takes the pain of all of this depression. You'll find that your body starts, like it has to resonate somewhere. And I was finding I was getting back pain that because I was doing nothing. So movement is number 1. Second thing is laugh. I mean, like, have a podcast on in the background that's funny, watch a movie, have funny things going on, bring laughter into it. You actually physically find that laughter, because if you're moving your body during the day, if you're laughing, then all of this negativity just can't get in, because it actually releases chemicals within your body that can't actually can't stop you from feeling, will stop you from feeling bad. And the last one is, do something good for somebody else. We all have something within ourselves that we know. So reach out and teach somebody. So if you, for example, are good at social media, or you're good at editing videos, or you're good at teaching anything, we all know something. Reach out and say to someone, I can teach you that. start a Zoom line, because then that will give you that sense of accomplishment. So we all have something, and reach out and say, oh, I'll teach you that, or I'll help you with that. If we can't leave the house and can't do, and help someone physically, make sure that you help them over online. Teach everything that's in your brain, get it out and give it to somebody else to help them, to make them, and then somebody will teach you to do something which will in turn just lift your own physical spirits.
Thank you. You guys are so brilliant. And I am so grateful that you have left these great ideas for people. Hopefully people watching it will take some of these ideas and improve their situation. So now we're at the fun part of the show. Let's see who's the smartest in the group. So since our topic is depression and suicide, I try to find jokes and riddles related. And so the first one is, why was the strawberry crying? And if you have the answer, just tell us, why was the strawberry crying?
Was it in a jam?
Because his mom was in a jam. That's correct, Paul. First point goes to Paul. Woohoo! Okay. Second one. Paul, did you cheat? How did you know? You're just brilliant, huh?
I love jam. What can I say?
Okay, the second one is, what do the big buckets say to the smaller bucket?
Fill me up.
I mostly can't say it because it's rude.
Go ahead, say it. You can say anything on this show, remember? You guys give up?
I'm going to say it's got to be something like fill me up or something. I don't know.
Good try, Sacha. Good try. Anyone else? You're looking a little pale today. I thought you were so cute.
That's definitely than what I was going to say.
I want to know what you were going to say, Paul. That's what's most exciting.
Come on, Paul, blurt it out.
What did the little bucket say to the big bucket?
Yes.
Fuck it.
That's an example, Paul. I'll give you 2 points. Okay, and here's our third question. Why was the poor guy selling yeast? Why was the poor boy selling yeast?
He was hoping to get a raise.
That's a good try. Anybody else?
I like that one.
Listen, there's some key words in it to help you with the answer. Why was the poor boy selling yeast?
He was into bread.
Any other tries? Okay, he was
some money.
some dough.
He what?
He was trying to raise some dough.
Some dough. Oh.
Money. All right. Okay. Now the next one. Why do cows have hooves instead of feet?
Hooves? Did you say hooves or boobs?
Hooves. Hooves. Why do cows have hooves instead of feet? HOOVES instead of feet.
Oh. No idea.
Because
Do
they
they
lack
need
toes.
boots?
Because they lack toes.
I said lacto. Oh.
Lactose. What's that got to do with depression? Are they depressed they don't have feet?
It's your tip, Sacha, to laugh. So
Okay, we have 2 more. I have to ask you guys these ones just because they're cute. Why do birds fly south for winter?
was because they just want to get away because they're freaking being locked up.
It's too far to walk.
Ah,
And then I have two more, then we're done. Did you hear about the kidnapping at school?
The what?
Did you hear about the kidnapping?
oh, the
at
kidnapping.
Oh, as in like the kid having a sleep.
Good job. I
Yeah.
said it that way
Sleep,
to help you
yeah.
guys with the answer. It's
Nope.
okay. He woke up is the answer. I just think these were
He
so
woke up. Oh.
I couldn't resist. And the last one is, why do crabs never give to charity? Why do crabs never give to charity?
Oh, because they walk on their sides. I don't know.
They haven't got good
Because
claws.
they're selfish.
They haven't got, yeah.
Did you guys hear the answer? Because they're shellfish.
Ah,
Selfish.
Oh, shellfish. Shell.
Yeah, you get it?
Like
Selfish.
shellfish.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, this was so great. You guys were brilliant. I thank you so much, each of you, for taking the time and participating. I'm sorry we lost Erica, but I'm sure that maybe she lost her power or something. So I would like to thank each of our panelists for being on this show and for having the courage to share their views candidly. This platform is open to all views, religions, ethnicities, cultures, and differences, even gender non-specific. Our goal is to agree to disagree because we believe it's possible and necessary for us to create this necessary shift in the world. Join us breaking stereotypes and molds, and let's embrace diversity because we believe when you embrace diversity, you embrace humanity. Thank you for watching Diversity Matters, and we will be back soon with great panelists to discuss other important cutting edge topics. And I thank you again, my panelists. This was great. And I will see you next time.